Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to take a look at the Magicka Warden PvE build for Dragonbone's DLC. I do have a written guide on my website, link in the description. I do show different gear setups. Now here on this video I will present you the non-bear setup. Because I do know a lot of people dislike pets, but just keep in mind you can run both. Like without bear or with bear, but you will have to change your gear up quite drastically. Another thing, Magicka Wardens still lack in terms of DPS compared to other setups. However, they're not that far behind as people think they are, especially if you have certain setups. We are running the Apprentice Mundus Stone. Then max health, max magicka is still the best food for me. If you struggle with sustain, you could run Witchmother's Potent Brew. Just keep in mind, look at this here. Now we have, when I use a potion, we are at 961. With the Witchmothers we get up to almost 1.6k. But we lose in health. So usually this here is fine. If you get bubbles from the healers, synergies work well now, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Potions, I use those. You don't necessarily need those because you have the spell damage buff from here and the crit from Inner Light. But those have a 48-second duration, that's why I usually use those. You can use the normal pots if you don't have the money. In terms of race, High Elf or Dark Elf are both fine, they're very similar. They both have Flame Frost shock damage and max magicka. Any other race you will lose a little bit of damage. Please make sure not forget to subscribe. And keep in mind, this here is the setup that I'm showcasing without the bear. If you want to run the bear, you will pull a little bit, you will pull more damage, but you need to drastically change the setup because with the bear you want to run Acuity and Master Architect. I have that setup on my website. Now this here is without the bear. You're running Necropotence. While you have a pet active, you get 3150 magicka. Now what pet do we have? You have the Blue Betty. So we have 49k here. And when I use this, it goes up to 43. And it's pretty easy to keep this up all the time. Elambris. Very nice ranged monster set. Deals a lot of flame and shock damage. Has a really nice AoE. How do we proc this? So basically with force pulls and the asylum stuff we have more than enough flame and shock damage. Pretty easy to proc. Also gives us more max magicka, which is nice. Free Moon Dancer. You could also run Willpower. The damage is more or less the same. Willpower might even be a little bit stronger. Now make sure to have spell damage on all jewelry. Then magic enchants on the armor with divine traits. Now here is where it gets tricky. Asylum, Perfected, Inferno stuff. I do know not a lot have the Perfected one, however, you can run the Imperfect. I still do recommend that you actually get the Perfected one. I do know not a lot of you can actually do hard mode in Asylum, but you don't need to. You just need to get on the leaderboard, which is not that difficult. You don't need hard mode for leaderboard because there's not that many people running Asylum. Then from the weekly rewards you actually have a chance to drop perfected Asylum weapons. That's how you should try to get it if hard mode is too difficult. Infused with a Flame Enchant. Flame Enchant does the most damage. Infuse buffs it, obviously. Back bar, Maelstrom Inferno. Nernhound with a weapon damage. You can also run Infused here. Some people run Nernhound, some Infused. If you weapon swap a lot, like every 4 seconds you need to reapply something, then Infused is most likely better because you can keep up the spell damage enchant almost all the time. That's about this setup. Like I said, if you want the bear setup, it's on my website. In terms of champion points, pretty basic setup, 40 Tom, 44, 21. 56, 31, 48, 36, 37, 75, 49, 43. And here we have 20, 49, 49, 48, 13 and 61. Play around with those. Like for example, that's quite a lot of points in Staff Expert. Maybe you want to take a few out and put some more in here. I'm also experimenting. Red CP. I do have an article on my website where I talk about optimized red CP for trials. Because in some trials you have more magic damage and in some less, more direct damage, more AoE damage and all that stuff. So you want to optimize those red CP, take a lot less damage. Yeah, that's it about the CP. Now, maybe about the Thaumaturge thingy. We don't put 75 here anymore. It's not worth it for the exploiter because of the off-balance change. And we have a lot of direct damage abilities and dots, so we kind of want to mix this up or make it almost equal to each other. Before we get to the skills, a few things. Keep in mind, you can change the build around. I want to give you kind of a base structure. In the end, you need to understand how you want to set up your Warden. Everybody plays differently. Wardens have a few nice passives, more ultimate here, more recovery here. Keep in mind, if an animal companion ability is slotted. So we have this here on the front bar, this here on the back bar. With the max buff food, it's not that important, but with the Witch Mother, if you run this, you actually will see a huge change in Magicka recovery. Advanced Species increases your damage done by 2% for each animal companion ability slotted, so we have the Deep Fissure here and the Blue Betty. Now keep in mind, you can boost this. For example, if you want to run Winter's Revenge on the back bar, you have this, you get 6%. If you choose to run the bear instead of the other ulti, you will have 8%. So you can amp up your damage by quite a bit if you know how. Then here Nature's Gift. This also helps you sustain a lot. We proc this through Lotus Blossom. I do recommend only if you have sustain issues activate this, otherwise it's not really worth it. Other than that, there is nothing really interesting except the Piercing Cold increases your magic damage. Wardens have quite a lot of magic damage, so this is actually nice to have, a very strong one. Especially if you run the Bear ulti, which is magic damage as well. Other than that, make sure to have Destruction Stuff passives. Don't forget this here. A lot of people forget this. You need to have a Destruction Stuff ability or ultimate slotted on each bar to get this to proc, or like to have this active. Otherwise you will not get the 8% extra damage. We have Force Pulse here and Blockade of Fire here. And the ultimate obviously. But if you want to run the bird instead of the Force Pulse, then you need to make sure to get the ultimate to the front, like onto the front bar, the Elemental Rage. Otherwise, this is gone. Keep that in mind. A lot of people forget that. Light armor all. Heavy armor Juggernaut, so you get 2% more max health, which is nice. And if you want Vampire this here, with max food, it's not really worth it, but if you run Witch Mothers, definitely roll with it. Just keep in mind you will take extra fire damage. Then Mage's Guild. You want to have all. Fighter's Guild, you only really need Banish the Wicked, so you get more ulti regeneration when you kill Undead, Dead or Werewolves. Undaunted, Metal, 6% max stats, because we run 5 light, 1 heavy and 1 medium. How we get it. I really recommend doing that. Racial passives and alchemy medicinal use. This here is very important. Otherwise your potions will only last like 30 to 35 seconds. The potion cooldown is 45 seconds. So you basically can keep it up 100%. That's how most people get the sorcery and prophecy on most builds. You don't need to extra slot that stuff. That's it about the passives. Now, skills. Rotation. There is not really a rotation. Like, it's very dynamic because a lot of skills have different timers. Like this here, 12 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds. So it's just really hard. I will do a target dummy DPS test later when I have time. I do already have one from a patch, like 1 or 2 patches ago. I will put the link in the description. If you want, you can already check that out. I was kinda experimenting with Warden rotation and stuff like that in that old video. Anyway, Blue Betty. This needs to be up first off because of the Necro set. And it gives you a lot of extra Magicka, so it helps with sustain. Winter's Revenge. Very strong dot. Has a 12-second duration. And you have Force Pulse. Now, this is an essential skill, especially with the Asylum weapon. This also has a small AoE effect. Up to 2 nearby enemies will take 4.5k magic damage if they were already afflicted with burning, chill, concussion or status. If you need to run an AoE ability, for example on Trash, what you can do is you can either keep up dots and just use this every 3 seconds, or get Impulse for AoE damage. Or swap out the flame staff with a shock staff so you can do shock heavy attack. Shock heavy attacks are very strong, channeled, they have good splash damage. Another very important thing about Asylum stuff I almost forgot to mention. Don't weapon swap the Force Pulse. Otherwise it will not apply the Asylum buff. So you always want to make sure to either use Winter's Revenge or Deep Fissure before you weapon swap, but not Force Pulse. Then Deep Fissure, very strong ability. 50, like it has just huge damage, but it only works every 3 seconds. If you want, you don't necessarily need this. You could replace it with something else. For example, because the Asylum stuff is nice with the Force Pulse rotation. If you want to run Witch Mothers, you could for example use Structured Entropy to get more health. So we are at 60.2k, a little bit better than 15k. But yeah, I do like this ability because of its AoE damage. It's really nice. So I do recommend learning to keep it up almost all the time. It is a little bit expensive. Inner Light gives us 7% max Magicka, 5% from here. And 2% from here. Nice. And Northern Storm, we don't use this ultimate, but it's nice to have here because we get 8% more max Magicka while it's slotted. Blockade of Fire deals a lot of damage. Burning enemies take 20% more damage from this. If you have a DK running Engulfing Flames, you get another 10% increased damage for all fire abilities. Fetcher Infection, another strong damage over time effect. Every second cast deals 50% more damage. Harness Magicka, this is your shield. It's a lifesaver, you can just mitigate so much damage from it. Then Lotus Blossom is here to heal. Will only get Nature's Gift. Passive. I think if you heal an ally, otherwise it won't work. But anyway, only use this if you really have sustain issues. Inner Light again. And then the Zerg ulti, Fiery Rage. Very strong AoE ultimate. Use it both for single target and AoE obviously. If you don't run the bear. Now, as you can see, I only have 2 skills basically on the back bar. Blockade and Infection. So what I usually do is I reapply those at the same time. And then Winter's Revenge, when it runs out, I reapply it. Deep Fissure, I try to keep it up. Or at least use it twice every rotation or before I weapon swap. Then I just spam Force Pulse. Because of the Asylum stuff, all those things hit really hard. Like the status effects. get a lot of burning damage and that kind of stuff. That's it about the setup. I do know it's very difficult. I will try to do a DPS test at some point. I do have a few others I need to do first. And I will try to showcase you both the non-bear setup and the bear setup, if I get the chance to do so. Till then, I do hope this wasn't too confusing. There is so much good things you actually can change around with a Magicka Warden. Just need to play around with it a little bit. If you do have any questions, ask me in the comment section below. Make sure to not forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.